Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to make a very special Austrian dish called TAFELSPITZ. And TAFELSPITZ is essentially braised beef with vegetables. TAFELSPITZ is considered one of the penultimate Austrian dishes, and in fact it was supposedly the favorite dish of Emperor Franz Josef. He apparently ate it every day. It was his one meal of the day. And he lived to be 86 years old and was fit as a drum, so perhaps there's some truth to that. And indeed, my great-grandfather was one of his bodyguards, and that's one of the reasons why we enjoy TAFELSPITZ so much today in our household. Let's first take a look at the ingredients that we have, because what matters is the quality and the selection of ingredients that we use. So why don't we start right in over here. Okay, one of the first things you're going to do when you're preparing the TAFELSPITZ is you're going to roast beef bones. And they come packaged just this way, or if they're whole you can have the butcher cut them for you. And you're going to roast them for about 30 minutes. You did about, what, 400 degrees Fahrenheit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't add anything else to the pan. They self-grease, and the whole idea is to roast them so it begins to caramelize, and that flavor will then be imparted into your dish. The next thing we're going to add will be onions. But we do something very special with the onions. We cut them in half, we still leave the skins on, and they're going to be roasted on a cast iron pan directly over the heat until these are blackened. We're not going to add anything into the pan. There won't be any oil or butter or anything like that. The natural juices and oils that are in the onion are what are going to caramelize, and then these will go into the pot whole as well. Next is the cut of meat we're going to use. This is called a tri-tip or triangle beef. As you can see, it roughly forms the shape of an isosceles triangle. This is actually the tip of the sirloin, and this is not a rare cut necessarily, but there's only 2 of them on every steer, so you're not going to see a lot of them in your supermarket, but you can very easily order it if it's not available. And each one weighs about 1.5 to 2 pounds. This one's about 2 pounds, and because it's a sirloin, it's going to have to cook for about an hour, hour and a half to make sure that it gets fully cooked. But when we serve it, it's just going to be delightful. The next thing that goes into the pot will be vegetables, and the root vegetables include carrots, parsnips, and celery root. But as you can see, we've got it divided into 2 bowls, and the reason for that is the first half is going to go in when we are cooking the meat early on, and the second half goes in near the end after we've strained out all the other cooking ingredients, and we're going to produce our broth. That's when we put in the finishing vegetables that you're actually going to eat. Seasonings that we like to use: juniper berry, black peppercorn, and mustard seed. We're also going to use bay leaf, parsley, and garlic clove. And when we're putting the finishing herbs in, we'll use some sliced leek, as well as some chive, which we're going to mince. And so that will comprise the dish, but we then finish it off with a sauce that we're going to make out of grated Granny Smith apple and some horseradish. So next thing we have to do, we've roasted the bones already. Now we have to take care of blackening the onions. So let's go over to the stovetop and do that. And as we said before, you slice them with the skins still on, and without putting anything else into the pan. There's no oil, butter, or any other cooking medium. That goes directly on. And here it's starting to sizzle. And the idea here is we are caramelizing the onions. We're going to blacken them. Oh boy, it's already smelling great. And the reason we do this is to impart flavor to the broth. The blackened onions are going to be part of the first wave of vegetables that go into the TAFELSPITZ pot while it's cooking. But those first wave vegetables are the ones that we strain out. Alright, so let's see. So you can see how it's already starting to brown a little bit. We need it to be substantially darker than that. So we just give it a couple minutes. And every once in a while, give it a little shake, just so it doesn't stick to the pan. So let's have a look and see how these guys are. Yeah, I think we're getting pretty close. Okay, well it's time to start. We start with the roasted beef bones. Next we're going to add the tri-tip. Next we're going to add the onions. And now we have to fill this about 3/4 of the way with water. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the tri-tip sirloin, we've got beef bones, we have the sliced and caramelized onions. We filled up the pot 3/4 of the way with cool water. We're now going to turn the heat on and bring it to a rolling boil. While we're waiting for that to happen, we're going to add our seasonings. We've got a couple of bay leaves, we've got 2 garlic cloves with the ends trimmed off, and here we've got 4 or 5 juniper berries, 15 black peppercorn, a teaspoon of yellow mustard seed, and about a tablespoon of sea salt. And that goes in as well. Last but not least, the cooking vegetables: parsnip, carrot, and celery root.
You have to cover?
You do. As they say, a watch pot never boils. This will make it happen faster. There we go. Okay, so it's been about 17 minutes since we turned the heat on, covered the pot, and you can see it's now boiling. And as you can see, it's already producing some scum. The scum is what comes off of the beef when it starts to boil. The scum is this foam on the top here. Now, some purists would tell you that you should just boil the beef first because it makes it easier to remove the scum. I get that, but also I want to impart as much flavor as I can, so I've got no problem starting with all the vegetables in first. You can see how the scum comes off. Just put it onto a pan. And we're going to have to do this a couple of times in the first few minutes of boiling. So we're going to let this continue at a rolling boil for a few more minutes, skim as we go, and then we're going to turn down the temperature so it just simmers, and we will put the lid back on.
There you go.
And about an hour and a half from now. Okay, so wine. We are waiting for our TAFELSPITZ to finish braising, and we like to serve wine with our TAFELSPITZ, but frankly you could serve beer, you could serve a hard cider, or something non-alcoholic if you prefer. When it comes to wine though, we would recommend either a white wine or a light or medium bodied red. And the one that we're going to choose today, this is one that we grew here. It's the grape is called St. Laurent, and this is a cousin of Pinot Noir. So just like true Pinot Noir, it's going to have a lot of finesse and a lively, zippy acidity, perfect for a dish like this. And this wine, by the way, the St. Laurent, is the one that was featured in the Wall Street Journal back in November as one of 20 wines to have on your Thanksgiving table. That was the 2017 vintage. This is the 2018, which we're going to release shortly. But as you can see, beautiful color, beautiful aromatics. And 2018 was a tough growing season here, but that turned out to be a lovely wine.
It's very nice.
Prost.
Prost. Na zdrowie.
Okay, so this has been simmering now for an hour and 15 minutes, and we're going to take a look and see how it's coming along. Ooh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you can see the tri-tip sirloin beef has shrunk a bit.
Yeah.
The onions and all the carrots and garlic and so forth are continuing to infuse flavor into the broth. So what we're going to do now is we are going to remove the beef. We're going to strain out all of the remaining solids, so all the vegetables that have been cooked in it, but we are going to save the broth. The broth will then receive the beef back, as well as the finishing vegetables and a couple more herbs And it'll be time to eat in about 15-20 minutes, okay?
Sounds good.
Reverse the process. The meat goes back into the pot.
I have the vegetables for you.
The vegetables go in. And that includes the leeks. Last but not least, a bouquet garni of parsley. We'll just tuck under the surface. And now we get our fire going again. And we don't even have to cover. The TAFELSPITZ is ready. So it's coming off the stove. It's still very hot, as you can see. So what we have to do first is remove the tri-tip to carve it. Before we do though, we're going to put a quick edge on our knife. That'll do. And when you take it out, try to not bring a lot of the vegetables with you. Out it comes. Okay, when we slice our TAFELSPITZ, it's very important that you cut against the grain. And by the grain, if you look at the top of the meat, you can see these lines. This means this is the grain, like this, okay? We're going to cut perpendicular to that, a 90-degree angle. The reason for that is if you cut against the grain like this, it releases a lot of the fibers that are in the meat, so it's going to be much easier to chew. It's going to taste much more tender. If we cut with the grain, it's actually going to be much more chewy. We don't want that. So we find the grains going this way, we turn our knife 90 degrees, and we go. As you can see, I'm cutting about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so how do we serve? So, take 2 larger pieces of meat, 1 smaller one. The smaller one goes beneath the first one, so it props them both up, just like so. And next, ladle some of the vegetables and broth. So I always start with the vegetables, but very little broth. And you want to put them right on the top. Like so. And now, broth. Okay? And this is going to go directly on a plate. We have chives that have been minced, and we have dill fronds, so just a little sprinkle of each. Okay. Now the classic way to finish a TAFELSPITZ is with grated green apple and grated horseradish. And you add a little dash of lemon juice in here when you're grating the apple, just to ensure that it doesn't oxidize and turn brown. And even if you're not a big fan of horseradish, just try this. It just makes the whole dish come alive. And you take it and you put it in one corner, and that way the diner knows exactly where they can dip in and get a little bit when they're ready. Last but not least, we like to serve a rosti with this, which is, I think you may know, is a giant potato home fry. And for presentation purposes, turn it just like so. Okay. That is TAFELSPITZ. I want to taste it before you season it, which is what I'm going to do right now. The broth is ethereal. It's lovely. It is very light, and you can pick up the hints of both the beef and the vegetables. I am going to season a little bit though. You can use salt, pepper, a little bit of both. I'm actually going to season mine with a little bit of our Alpine seasoning, which is a dash of salt with some dried herbs. Let's see if that punches it up just a little bit. Voila. Okay. Agnieszka, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
For a long time.
So is the TAFELSPITZ, so it's time for a taste, okay?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Nice and tender.
Yes, yes.
So what do you think?
It's good. Good job.
Post.
Thank you again for this lesson.
Well, we hope you
So-
all learned something today too. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Please see the recipe in the description box below.
Please like us and subscribe our video. Thank you.